So good day everyone. Good day to you, Mr. Anthony Gamale, sir. I am Brian B. Razalo, base criminology second year student. So chapter 2, nationalism and patriotism. So basic concept of nationalism and patriotism. So nationalism. So nationalism is an ideology and movement defined by promoting the interests of a particular nation. So in particular, with the aim of acquiring and maintaining the nation's sovereignty over its country of origin. And Smith 2010. Nationalism claims that each nation should regulate itself, so free from outside intervention, that a nation is natural and ideal political basis. So, and that the nation is the only legitimate source of political authority, find lesson 2014. So, it is also aims to build and maintain a single national identity. So, based on shared social characteristics such as culture, language, religion, politics, and belief in distinctive shared history, and to promote national unity of solidarity. Yak 2012. So nationalism therefore seeks to preserve and encourage a nation traditional culture and cultural revivals have been connected to the nationalist movements. So it also fosters pride in domestic accomplishment and is strongly associated with patriotism. So nationalism is often paired with other ideologies. For instance, conservatism or socialism. Types of nationalism. So nationalism can be expressed along several ethnic, cultural, religious, or ideological lines. These self-definition of countries are used to classify distinct kinds of nationalism. Although these categories are not mutually exclusive, and many nationalist movements combine to differing degrees some of all those components. 1. Ethnic nationalism or ethno-nationalism. The country is described from prior generations in terms of ethnicity and descent. It also involves the concept of a shared culture among group members. So, and generally a shared language. The nation membership is hereditary. The state derives political legitimacy from its status as the ethnic group's homeland and from its obligation to safeguard the partially domestic group as a group of promote its family and social life. So in contrast to Western opinion of a country, defined by its geographic territory, jurist Anthony D. Smith utilized the word ethnic nationalism for non-Western notions of nationalism. So the word ethno-nationalism is usually used only in relation to nationalists who support an explicit ideology along these lines. So the more generic word is ethnic nationalism and is used by nationalism, the hold such views in an informal, instinctive, or unsystematic manner. So, the pejorative type of both is ethnocentric nationalism or tribal nationalism. Although tribal nationalism may have non-pejorative significance when debating African, Native American, or other nationalism that publicly claim a tribal identity. So number two, civic nationalism or civil nationalism. The state derives political legitimacy from its citizens' active involvement and the extent to which it reflects the will of the individuals. Civic nationalism lies within the tradition of rationalism and liberalism, but its contrast with ethnic nationalism as a type of nationalism. Civic nation members is regarded to be voluntary. So the growth of representative democracy in nations such as the United States and France was affected by civil national values. So state nationalism often coupled with ethnic nationalism. So it's a version of civic nationalism. It means that the country is a community of those who contribute to the state's maintenance and strength, and that there is the person to contribute to that object. The country is supposed to be a community of those who contribute to the state's maintenance and strength, and right there and right and where the person exists expressly in a society to contribute to that object. So this often results in fascism. Generally is characterized by authoritarianism and nationalism. Fascism is a political ideology. Number three, expansionist nationalism. So, a radical form of imperialism that includes the independent, patriotic feelings with a faith in an expansionism, generally through military aggressions. The word was coined in the late 19th century as European powers indulged in the scramble for Africa in the name of domestic glory, but was most closely linked with militarist government in the 20th century BC, including fascist Italy, Nazi Germany, the Japanese Empire, and the Balkan nations of Albania or Great Albania, Bulgaria, Greater Bulgaria, Croatia or Greater Croatia, Hungary. Nations are not believed to be equivalent to their right to self-determination. Some countries are believed to possess features or qualities that make them superior to others. Therefore, expansionist nationalism argues the right of the state to expand its boundaries at the cost of its neighbors. So number four, romantic nationalism. It is otherwise known as organic nationalism and identity nationalism. So it is form of ethnic nationalism in which that state derives political legitimacy as a result and expression of the nations. Natural. It is based on the presence of a historical ethnic culture that meets the romantic ideal. Number five, cultural nationalism. Cultural nationalism. The country is described by shared culture, not solely civic or ethnic. Chinese nationalism is instance of cultural nationalism, partially due to China's many national minorities. Membership in the nation is neither completely voluntary nor hereditary. However, a traditional culture can be more readily integrated into the lives of any person, particularly if the person can obtain his or her abilities at an early point of his or her own lives. Conversely, of 2008, cultural nationalism has been defined as a variety of non-civil or ethnic nationalism. So, Nelson 1999. So, number 6, third world nationalism. So, third world nationalism, nationalist feelings are the outcome of opposition to colonial rule to survive and maintain a domestic identity. So, number 7, liberal nationalism is a kind of nationalism lately defended by political philosophers who think that a non-xenophobic form of nationalism compatible with liberal values of liberty, tolerance, equality, and individual rights can exist. It is asserted that in order to lead meaningful, independent life, people need a national identity, and those liberal democracies need domestic identity to work correctly. So, liberal nationalists often defend and the importance of domestic identity by stating that people need a domestic identity to lead meaningful, independent life. So, and that liberal democratic politics need the domestic identity to work correctly. So, the author of this is David. So, number 8, religious nationalism. Nationalism's connection to a specific religious faith, church, or affiliation. It can be seen that a shared religion contributes to a sense of the domestic unity and mutual bond between the nation's people. So, this connection can be divided into two dimensions. So, religions, politicization, and religion's converse effect on the politics. In the former aspect, it can be seen that a shared religion in the former aspect religion contributes to a sense of domestic unity, a common bond between the nation's people, the support of national identity comparable to a shared ethnicity, language, or culture. So, is another political element of religion. More ideological is the impact of religion of politics. or present interpretation of religious concepts. So inspire political activism and actions. For instance, legislation are enacted to encourage stricter religious adherence. So number 9, pan-nationalism. Ano is it? Ethnic or cultural nationalism refers of a country that is itself a cluster of associated ethnic and cultural communities such as Turkish people. 11. Stateless nationalism. On nationalist basic, the Catalans and Basques in Spain, an ethnic or cultural minority within a nation state ends independence. Number 12. National conservatism, a political term mainly used in Europe to describe a version of conservatism that focus more on domestic interests than conventional conservatism. While not being unduly nationalists are pursuing a far-right agenda. Number 13. Revolutionary nationalism. Revolutionary nationalism is an ideological theory that calls for domestic growth, united by a shared sense of an intent and destiny, also known as radical nationalism. So it was first ascribed and strongly promoted by Benito to followers of revolutionary syndicalism in France and Italy at the start of the 20th century. This intellectual synthesis of radical nationalism and dissident society was created. So number 14, left-wing nationalism. Left-wing nationalism, also sometimes referred as socialist nationalism, relates to any political movement combining left-wing or socialism with nationalism. Notable examples include the July 26 movement of Fidel Castro, which launched the Cuban Revolution in 1959, to us the American-backed Fulgencio Batista, Ireland's Sinn Féin, Israel Labor Unionism, and the African National Congress. Patriotism. What is patriotism? Patriotism or natural pride is a sense of love, dedication, and attachment to a country and alliance with other people who share the same impression. This attachment can be a mixture of many distinct emotions, so including ethnic, cultural, political, or historical elements related to one's own country. So it is a predominant virtue linked to a nation's love, with greater emphasis on values and beliefs. One who is patriotic will be willing to offer any sacrifice to his nation. So he'll never live alone. For example, for the sake of his country. A soldier makes a ultimate sacrifice of his life for no other reason than being a citizen of that nation. Patriotism is dedication to one's nation. In essence, patriotism is a sense of attachment and dedication to a country, nations, or political community, or just country love. The English word patriot is first known in the Elizabethan period. It originated from Latin in 6th century patriota via Middle French, meaning countryman. Finally, from Greek patriotis, meaning from same nations patris, meaning fatherland. Little and Scott, 2013. The abstract non-patriotism appears in in the early 18th century. So by adhering to a national religion, patriotism can be reinforced. This is the reverse of the church state separation requested by the Enlightenment intellectuals who saw patriotism and religion. So as analogs and opposing forces, Michael Billig and Jean Bit Elsten both asserted that it is hard to discern the distinction between patriotism and faith and depends heavily on the attitude of the person who does the label. So what is the three kinds of patriotism? Patriotism of duty. Number one, this include fidelity to one's nation through material acts. This is military service, patriotism, and other selfless sacrifices types. This is where patriotism becomes embodied and its ideals take praiseworthy particular actions. So number two, patriotism of affection. This is the patriotism of the heart. It is about one's one's about internal desire for his country well-being. The patriotism of affection can be seen in the patriotism of duty, but it does not necessarily result in it. One can truly love his country and yet be a card, just as one can theoretically fulfill a patriotic duty and yet feel apathetic about the country welfare. Number three, patriotism of manner. This is custom patriotism, written and unwritten. The patriotism of manners is to please others hand over the heart during the national anthem. It can be performed by any without actually needing affection or duty patriotism. While the above types of patriotism show, at least in part, the real beliefs and hopes of person. So the patriotism of manners establishes mostly a set of protocols. So types of patriotism. 1. Personal patriotism is emotional and voluntary. The patriot adheres to certain patriotic values such as respect for the flag of the honoring of veterans. Other expression of personal patriotism include enlisting in the army, public service, and participation in the political process through voting or other forms of activism. Number 2, official patriotism, promoted by the government, which has a high symbolic and ceremonial content. So It is a logical consequence of the state itself, which derives legitimacy from being the expression of the common good of the political community. So national monuments and veterans days and commemoration ceremonies are typically regulated by protocol with specific methods of alliance. Official patriotism relies heavily on symbolic acts such as displaying the flag, singing the national anthem, saying a pledge, participating in a mass rally, placing a patriotic bumper sticker on one's vehicle, or any other way of publicly proclaiming alliance to the state. Number 3. Symbolic patriotism. In wartime is intended to raise morale, in turn contributing to the war effort. 4. Peacetime patriotism cannot be easily linked to a measurable gain for the state, but the patriot does not see it as inferior. Levels of patriotism vary across time and among political communities. Typically patriotic, so intensity is higher when the state is under external threat. So this is the difference between patriotism and nationalism. While the terms patriotism and nationalism were once regarded as synonymous, distinct connotations were assumed. While both are people's feelings of affection for their nation, the values on which they are based are very distinct. Patriotism feelings are based on the country positive values like liberty, justice, and equality. The patriot thinks that both their country's state system and individuals are inherently good and working together to achieve a better quality of life. On the other hand, nationalism emotions are based on the beliefs that one's nation is superior to all others. It also holds connotation of other countries, distrust or disapproval, leading to the premise that other states are competitors, while patriots do not degrade other countries automatically. Nationalists do, sometimes to the point of calling for the global dominance of their country. Nationalism is the Nationalism is the polar opposite of globalism by its protectionist beliefs. So, historical both positive and negative have been the impact of nationalism. So, while it is a motivated movement of autonomy such as the Zionist movement factor in the increase of the German Nazi Party and the Holocaust, According to Sidney Harris, the patriot is proud of his nation for what it does, and the nationalist is proud of his nation whatever it does. The first approach and generate a sense of accountability, and the second of sense of blind stupidity leading to war. So that would be all. Thank you.